This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Conversation with Freedom. Today, I have a very special guest. He's from Mauritius and his work is very remarkable. Devaraj, welcome to my podcast.
Hello, Freedom. It's a real pleasure to be on this podcast with you today morning.
You're
So it's wonderful.
welcome. You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. For those people who don't know who Devaraj is, please tell us more about yourself and the amazing work that you're doing.
All right. So where to start?
You can take us way back where it all started.
So it all started. So I was born in Mauritius. It's currently where I live as well. So I'm a Mauritian,
Yeah.
and so living in Mauritius is quite interesting. You are always you have a window to the world which is quite large, because Mauritius is made up of several people from several cultural backgrounds and ethnies
Yeah.
who have come together to create a sort of composite, but each with their own diversities. So
Okay.
that's a really nice place to be born in and to grow, because you get to learn about diversity itself and how people
Yeah.
are different, but strive and take pleasure also in living together and sharing things and learning from each other's wisdoms. So it all started here. I was born here. I did my education here itself in Mauritius. So
Okay.
it was a typical education process, we'll say. So then, at the time when I finished high school, I was a bit I wouldn't say torn, but was a bit in a sort of reflection period, trying to see where I would go, what my life, what direction it will take, and what kind of studies I would do at the tertiary level, so as
Yeah.
to be able to fulfill certain things I had in mind at that time. So I
Okay.
settled for studies in psychology. Uh, Psychology was something that, to me at that time, I wasn't really that much aware about the technicalities of the subject. It was
Yeah.
more, to me, it was a practical side of philosophy, something which I was interested in. So I jumped in for the studies, and I
Yeah.
traveled to Bangalore in India to do my studies in psychology.
Oh.
So, yeah. So during my degree, I had the immense chance to study the different components of psychology, mental health,
Yeah.
in the Indian context as well. And as you might be knowing, India also has a huge set of the diversity between people, between language, between culture.
Yeah.
So that gives another sort
Wait,
of
wait.
window
I'm
to.
I'm I'm sorry
Right.
to I'm sorry to cut you. Why did you choose India to go and study? Why India?
Uh, at that time in Mauritius, there were no courses at the university level in
Oh,
psychology. Now you have
okay.
in the national universities,
Oh,
but before you did not have any courses. And India was always something close to my heart, because my ancestry is from there.
okay.
So it was a sort of getting back to the roots in a very immersive way,
Yeah.
to understand. Because in Mauritius, even though we have Indian ancestry, the culture is not the same.
Oh,
Uh, it has been remolded according to interactions we've been having with other cultures,
mm,
people from the African continent, from China, from Europe, uh, have all mingled together to create a sort of a new culture.
yeah.
So it was. I always wanted to get a feel of what the ancestral culture was in the Indian context. So
Okay.
that was an opportunity. So I settled for India for my further studies, and I am also interested in music, in classical music, classical Indian music, especially the South Indian classical tradition of music.
Yeah.
And I was interested in Indian culinary traditions,
Okay.
and I was also interested in art. So India was the perfect ground to try and go and explore all these things along with my academic studies.
Okay.
So I settled for Bangalore in India. Bangalore is a bit like uh, it's a midway between the ancient and the modern. So it's a good urban culture with good hints of ancient traditions and ways of living.
Okay.
So then I did my studies, yes, in India.
Yeah.
Then I came back to Mauritius after 3 to 4 years. But at that time, I did not start a career in psychology or mental health, though it was
Right.
something that was already very close to me.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Sometimes when you're in your mid 20s, you want to just explore things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it was just at that time when I finished my studies, I came back. I got an opportunity to work into banking.
Okay.
Uh, so I took the opportunity. I worked for a major bank of the country into fraud management and investigations.
Yeah.
So that was a new world in itself, but it also opened up another facet of things. So I started learning about banking,
Yeah.
the corporate world, uh, finance to a certain extent, but it was more about fraud management. So assessing risks in terms of customers we had in the bank and external entities as well. So I
Mhm.
worked in that for 5 years.
Okay.
So by the time I was already, we will say, anchored into the banking profession, I had gathered quite some experience into the field. And when you work in fraud in a bank, you get access to all the processes, the different uh, sections of banking, because
Mm.
fraud will tend to affect the different dimensions of the banking processes. So I had a good understanding of the different processes involved in banking, like corporate banking, retail banking, etc.
Yeah.
Then after 5 years in that bank where I was working, it was a big bank, an international bank. Then I moved to another company, still related to banking,
Okay.
but now it was a French company. So that French company gave me another perspective on styles of working, styles of approaching
Mm. Mm.
the work culture, etc. So after that, then came a decisive point in my life. By that
Yeah.
time, I was well into my mid 30s. So it was a decision to either stay in the corporate world, where I was growing for during more than 10 to 12 years,
Yeah.
or get back to the field that I was always close to my heart, where that pushed me to go for further studies initially after my high school,
Yeah.
and which was still like growing deeply inside of me. So it was still there, like under waves, undercurrents, because I was always observing the world around. I had that keen interest of understanding why people were doing or behaving in a certain way,
Mm.
and then
Okay.
why people had uh, emotional states that were different from what they could be experiencing. Like sometimes you found people with different emotional context, experiencing distress or experiencing happiness or joy as well. So I
Mm.
was always there was always that push, that undercurrent to get back to that, like to work in it, to try to understand it with people, working with people, talking with people, and researching as well, so as to be able to contribute in a larger sense to the community and the society.
Okay.
So that's why at that decisive point, I decided to leave the corporate banking sector
Yeah.
and then re-jump, I would say, into the field that was close to my heart, that is mental health,
Yeah.
uh, psychological health, and understanding people at that level and contribute in that sense. But it's not easy to career transit.
Yes,
It's
yes,
not something.
yes. I was about to ask you that when is the right time to leave corporate to maybe going to something which you're passionate about? Is there a right time for someone to jump, to move from maybe corporate and be like, no, this is it. I wanna go and pursue this.
It's, I wouldn't say there is a right time. In what sense? Because if the corporate sector, in whichever field you are, is giving you the necessary motivation or
Yeah,
sense of fulfillment, so
yeah.
at that point there would be no need to really transit to something else. Because
Mm,
at the end of the day, working should be about getting the best out of yourself
yeah.
while contributing to the community, and
Yes.
not developing unhealthy patterns of thoughts and moods and emotions related to your work. So if your work is giving you that full sense of satisfaction, you have that drive, you have that sense, of contributing to the world, of getting the best out of yourself. So basically, you can wake up every day and say that I want to go to work. I'm motivated. That's going to be a wonderful day ahead. So if you have that kind of attitude on most days, it's not every day that's going to be like that, but if it happens on most days, then probably you shouldn't really be thinking about leaving your current field to go into something else.
Yeah.
That's one way of
Sam,
thinking.
please wait a minute.
This meeting is being recorded.
I'm sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So where I was, so one way of seeing things, like I was saying, if you're satisfied overall with what your work is providing you in terms of emotional health, of, let's say, happiness, to be broad, if your work is giving you that and you feel it in your routine most days, so at that point, to me, there is no really a sense of urgency or a need to move to something else. But if that is not happening, if you feel you could be doing much better, you could be a much better person, giving much more out of yourself, like you can thrive better in a different context from where you are operating at that point in time, then probably that would be the right time to transit. But then, transiting is always an uncertain phase, because there is the finance part. You need to sustain your living. So what happens is the period of transition going to give you that financial stability required for you to maintain your basic living standards. And for how long will it do that? Till you get that point of that necessary speed for your new career to pick up, so that you can gain that same level of that you had. So there are all these things that happen. So at that point where I was thinking of career transiting from the corporate world to the mental health field or psychology field, I told myself, so the strategy could be to try and do two things at the same time. So one thing was get towards having a sort of financial stability, we'll say, and then at the same time proceed, do further studies in mental health, so that to be better equipped to get into the new career. So what I did at that point, I opened a restaurant. The restaurant was called Mailapo Cafe. So Mailapo is a really nice. If you travel back if you go to India, there is a place in the southern part of India called Chennai. That's in. You find a lot of. It's a very cultural place, and they're still practicing an ancient form of culture there. So it's like a mix of new and the old culture. So I was really amazed by this place and very much inspired. So I wanted to take a bit of that and bring it in the Mauritian context through food. So the traditional food that you would find in India pertaining to the Tamil community or the South Indian community, I wanted to bring that cultural element to Mauritius through food. So I opened the Mailapo Cafe, the restaurant, as a business venture, to be able to find a sort of stability, and then at the same time pursue my studies in mental health. So it's an atypical path. I agree. It's not something that you would just do out and everyone will just jump into, because there are many things you need to consider, and it's you have to be constantly rethinking things, re-putting everything into perspective, and be committed to your goal and the end product of what you want to do. So the restaurant was a big hit. The cafe was a big hit. It was a really fresh take on Indian food in the country, and people kind of clicked to the idea, and they liked that transmission of culture that they could see through the food and the whole place that was around. So that happened, and then at the same time I started getting back to the mental health context through reading, getting back to the reading. Because research it's an extremely dynamic field. Each day, if each week, each month, you have new research going on the varied aspects of human behavior and why people are doing things the way they're doing, etc. So you need to be constantly on par with that research that's happening to be able to work effectively. So I started reading, and then I joined the course in mental health in a local university, so that I gain the maximum knowledge to be able to practice in the current scenario. Because if you remember, I studied long back psychology. It was right at that point, it was like 15 years before I had studied my degree. So I had to get back with a renewed knowledge. But then I realized that, to practice in the mental health field, if you're going to counsel people, if you're going to talk to people, if you're going to help people make a sense of what they're doing, make a sense of themselves, you need to gain a sense of maturity for yourself in terms of outlook, in terms of appreciating how things work in the society, the different dynamics that govern the institutions in life, relationships, how they work, what drives people, and you need to have seen a bit of that. So that's my personal take on things. Because when you have a little bit of a matured observation of the workings of the world, you can effectively understand research and put it into cultural perspective much better. So in a sense, I'm grateful that I managed, after all these things that I did in my career, to be able now to get back to that field. It's I'm really grateful for that, and I hope to carry whatever I've seen, whatever I've encountered in the different contexts, the professional context that I've been, and the social context as well. I hope that all these are giving me the necessary attitude and way, I'll say, to help people in the end.
Okay. Then,
now, I'm also really interested in spirituality, the spiritual dimension of things. So, because nowadays when we're talking about well-being, we're talking about wellness. We've always explained it in terms of emotional well-being, psychological well-being, or social well-being. But there is a dimension called spiritual well-being that is gaining traction nowadays. It's about aligning to a sense of purpose which is higher than what we see around, what is tangible and physical. So that's also an area that I'm deeply interested in, and I'm trying to bridge the gaps, not bridging the gaps, but trying to relate and align whatever modern research is doing to spiritual traditions that are ancient and have worked well with people over the years, over the centuries. So there could be a balance, a sense of balance between these two things, which may seem different, but in the end, they are all the same. If you look at it, yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who wanna pursue psychology as a career?
If someone wants to go into psychology as a career, the person should really understand the implications of working with people. Because ultimately, if you're getting into psychology today, the opportunities are huge. On one side, you have the practical side of psychology that is helping to in corporate cultures, like in human resources, etc. The corporate side of it. This is a very practically oriented application of psychology. Then you have psychology that's geared towards understanding the clinical dimension of things. So mental illness, like disorders, like depression, like anxiety, like psychosis, etc. So this is another field where you're going to work with people directly and people who are concerned with mental disorders. So that would, if someone is interested in going into that aspect of psychology, which is clinical psychology, and therefore getting into a clinical setting, that person should be ready to understand the different dimensions involved in being exposed to such contexts. So it will take understanding to have a good level of resilience oneself. It doesn't happen overnight as well. So you need to start doing it to get into the field, to gain the necessary skills and aptitudes. But right, if you're going to do it, you need to have a good choose, you need to be very much aware about the different fields or opportunities that psychology is going to offer in
Okay.
terms of careers. And then you have the dimension of research. So research would be in psychology is very much we'll say happening, because especially in countries such as the USA, in
Yeah.
different countries of Europe, in Asia as well. In South Africa, I know they have strong research oriented activities in terms of psychology. I've been reading a lot of papers coming from South Africa on different dimensions of psychology. So
Okay.
the research is blooming because ultimately what the study of psychology is, what is the study of human behavior. Like, I'm very
Yes.
blunt in saying that, very
Yeah.
limiting, but I'm just in simple terms. So human behavior is still under learning. We are still learning about how we behave, how we act, how we react to certain things in the way we do. So that's a continuous process, and research is very much needed in that field, across countries, across geographies, across cultures, across subcultures, across different peoples. So psychology could be a gateway to understand human behavior through uh, deepened research. So someone going into psychology could think about possible prospects into psychological research. But then comes the reality of the country and economic stability. And if there is a need, if your country offers, gives you the opportunity to get into research, and is that something that would be a feasible career to you and what you want to achieve in life?
Yeah.
But I would
And-
have,
yeah.
yes, yeah, please tell me, please tell me.
No, no, it's fine. Carry on.
So I would strongly advise anyone getting into the field to be a little bit aware of the different dimensions involved in psychology. It's just not what you see, someone lying on a couch and someone just sitting next to the person and taking notes of what the person is saying. That's therapy. That's a part of psychology.
Yeah.
That's psychological counseling, which is a field in itself, which is something which is very quite noble, I will say, because uh, through counseling and through therapy, you help people make sense of their own states, and through that, you provide a sort of help for them to be better in achieving whatever goals that they want to achieve, or they could have achieved if they knew about all the capabilities and strengths. So therapy, in that sense, equips people to do all these things. So someone who is going into therapy would need to be aware of what it involves, and if you feel you can do that, you can viscerally, I would say, like, if you have the strong feeling that, yeah, I'm up for that kind of thing, I want to help people, um, I'll have the skills to do the patience to go through all the training, and I'm keen on observing how people are in the environments. I love to listen. I have a certain degree of empathy.
Yeah.
Then that would be a really good field to go into.
That's
But
great.
just choosing psychology as an option, if you don't have any other options to go for studies, I would strongly disencourage people to do that, because you will be met with a number of hurdles in your way, and that will not really be helpful to prosper and grow.
Mm. What kind of, this is one of the most, this is one of the questions which I ask all my guests on the podcast, but I think you are the right person to answer it. What kind of advice would you give to someone who's struggling, someone who is having tough time, who's going through depression? What kind of advice would you give to
First and foremost, uh, the person should understand that he or she is not alone in feeling what he or she is feeling. Human experience is not, something which is black or white. It's not always positive. It's not always negative. There is a spectrum of things that human beings feel. So it's okay sometimes to feel low. It's okay to feel high. But we need to know that feeling low constantly isn't something that is uh, you're not alone in feeling. What I mean is that so one will not be alone. He will not be the only person feeling low like this. So there are people who can help in making you understand your situation, your context, and can help you to give you the necessary, we'll say, accompaniment to get you out and make sense of your whole situation. So feeling low is quite is a situation that happens to everyone.
True.
Like we have several things in life. We have stressors that happen in our surroundings. Sometimes there are major events that could be affecting us or giving us a certain sense of low or distressing emotions. But sometimes when this persists over the days and we can't seem to get out of it, we seem like we're stuck. We don't have any interest in doing things, like we cannot sleep well, we cannot eat well. Normally these are signs of some form of depression or a pre-depression symptoms, we'll say. So even for these kind of contexts, people should understand that they are not alone.
Okay.
There are people, there are professionals that can help to make sense of it all.
Yeah.
Why I say make sense of it all and not give solutions to come out of it? Because making sense is a huge step. If you go to someone to help you make sense of your current situation, that's a first big step towards getting better.
Yes.
So people should know that whatever they are feeling, if they're feeling overwhelmed, if they're feeling that things are getting beyond themselves, not to be discouraged totally and spiral down into the state where they are at the moment. The proper step, I know it's not easy, because it's just like saying, like, if you feel like this, but just go there. But in reality it doesn't happen this way, because we need to be inside of the person feeling the emotions to understand the real situation. But even then, all human beings have the capability of taking a step and going to someone else. And that someone else either is someone who is trained, who is a professional, who will be able to help to, as I said, to make sense of what is happening, and from there know what are the strategies that would be required to go towards positive outcomes out of the distressing situation. But getting back to what you were saying about people feeling low, etc., it's just knowing also that uh, it's okay to feel different types of emotions, but it's okay to be discouraged sometimes. It's okay to feel things are not really going well, but it's when it's okay is when it's persisting.
How do
It's
one know that it is persisting?
for example, if most days than not you're feeling low constantly and there is no apparent reason for that.
Oh, okay.
Like it's like, when we are faced with major stressors, for example, someone has died, someone close has died in my family.
Yeah.
It's very normal to mourn and to bereave. The process of bereavement is quite normal, and usually it's culturally known, and that it's going to take some time because we need to process all the sadness,
Is
emotions, etc. But then if that is going beyond of what is usual, because everyone has is usual,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows the sense of the culture where you are, your surrounding, the social setup where you are gives you that sense uh, since you have been living in it. All right.
Yeah.
So normally there are cues in the social context itself to make you aware of your own state. And you would know also for yourself, like, how have you been before? Were you
Oh,
always
yeah.
that person
Yeah.
who was feeling constantly low or constantly sad? Were you that person before for most of your life, or is it something that you're experiencing now during a longer span? You get the picture? What I
Yes,
mean?
I do. I do.
Yeah. So that would be triggers to yourself to make you understand that things are not okay, and I'm not being able to handle now. So if you have that sense of you're not being able to handle it, and it's not getting okay over a long period of time, then the right step would be to go to someone for help. And it's extremely all right to go for help. Like that's one of the greatest things you can do for yourself and your own well-being and your surroundings as well. But the major thing is for you yourself. So it's perfectly all right to go for help, because and help could be in a spiritual dimension as well. Like I was saying before, you know, sometimes we've seen like the propensity for people to get well is often related to the cultural ideas and cultural notions of what being well is.
Okay.
So this is a very strong determinant in people's lives, because we have to face it. We cannot just put like I cannot just come and tell you for you to be well you need to be like this, like this, like this,
Okay. Yeah.
because you also have valid emotions, you also have valid constructs about yourself, and you are the one who experiences yourself the most.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So that spiritual component, I'm calling it spiritual here because, and in that I'm including various cultural dimensions as well, because cultural constructs have always been there to, and you have been built with it.
Mm.
So even if you're assessing your state of not being well, it's usually there is a cultural element to it, because culturally this state where you are right now means not being well.
Mm. So I would like you to hold it there. We'll continue right after this.
This meeting is being recorded.
Devaraj, what are some of the important lessons that you've learned and the challenges that you've come across? You've been on this journey for so many years now. What are some of the challenges that you've encountered along the way?
So that's a big question, actually. It's a good question also because it forces you to go back to the different events that have kind of molded your perceptions and from which you've learned and extracted the wisdom out of it, we'll say. So the major thing for me is that we need to understand that human beings are diverse. Human beings have a varied set of ways of reacting to events and people around them. We are not just fixed on poles that oppose each other, but it's always a sort of progression or a continuum between the two poles. So, so what I've understood, what I've learned, it has been in a hard way and in a good way as well.
Yeah.
Be more accepting of situations. That's still a work in progress also. I've learned it in different degrees, but it's always a work in progress. To accept situations as they come.
Okay.
That doesn't mean not doing anything about things.
Yeah.
It's just accepting and knowing that as human beings, all situations that come in front of us, all events that happen to us, have we have a capability or the strength or we'll say the powers, we could call it this way, to deal with the situation, to or enjoy or work with for us to extract something out of it. Ultimately, we are here. We, as human beings, we want to grow and learn as many things as possible, to know about the world, to know how we can contribute to the world. So, accepting situations as they come, as they come, is a really wise way to push that learning further, to push the human experience further, and also be more appreciative of the human possibilities and the human capabilities that we have inherently. So if we try to resist things too much, so we sidetrack away from that. So if we accept things a little bit more, we open up different windows of ourselves. We open up qualities that we might be hiding, and we might be discovering new versions of ourselves each day or through each situations or events. So accepting things, one of the fundamental things I've learned through the span of events that life has brought to me till now. So we don't know how it will unfurl further, but striving to keep that attitude of accepting is, I've found, is a really wise way to go ahead.
Okay. How do one stay positive, or how do you, let me say it, how do you stay positive in a world that is full of negativity?
As much as the world is seemingly negative,
Yeah.
it is also seemingly positive.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
powerful.
because negativity cannot exist if you do not have positivity.
True, true.
And vice versa. So they are both dependent on each other. So you really can't have only negativity in the world or only positivity.
Yeah.
That points us to the same attitude of acceptance. So
Mm,
knowing that the world will
yeah.
always be negative and will always be positive. So that's
Okay.
accepting the world as it is.
Yeah.
So it takes some
Okay.
work. It takes some work. It takes some knowledge as well. It takes
Yeah.
some guidance from people who are more wise and
Mm,
who've seen things in that same perspective. Uh, it takes all these things to be able to cultivate that attitude of accepting things. So, in that same context, I will say that we need to strive and look at the positive more than the negative, while knowing
mm,
that the negative is essential for us to grow. Because
yeah.
if we're not faced with negative, we will never know what is positive.
True. True.
So the world will always have that tinge of what we call negative,
Yeah.
and it will also always have that those beautiful hues of what we call positive.
Mm.
So it's up to us to see things in the right perspective always. It's not easy. I'm not saying that it's something that's given, like I start saying things positive today and then there will be no negativity in my life.
Yeah.
That work is really something that needs to be, it needs to form part of the human culture. That idea
Mm,
of
mm, mm,
accepting things is beyond religions, is beyond race, it's
mm.
beyond creeds. So acceptance of the nature of the world as it is, of the different dynamics that operate, that govern the world, should be something that cuts across cultures and societies and way of seeing things. And hopefully that I'm being quite idealistic here, and expecting that maybe tomorrow the leaders of the world
Mm.
push that as the foremost thing that needs to be cultivated in people.
Why are you
And
inspired? Okay, 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 okay.
you see why? Because things will happen one day, a change will happen one day, a change in attitude, I mean, because if we have a change in attitude, then everything is all right.
Yeah.
If you see it from that perspective. So change will happen one day, and change is possible if it's given the proper political
Mm,
backing in the end.
mm,
So
mm.
if you don't have that motivation from the highest stances, because people will be left where they are,
Yeah.
drowned in things that they find are negative or they find are positive, where in the end they're not really making any uh, positive. I'm using the word positive in
Yeah.
the sense of constructive, creative things out of themselves.
Mm.
So accepting the world as it is, accepting people as they come, that doesn't mean not reacting to situations. It just means accepting, reflecting, applying wisdom, and then reacting to something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to take it all in. I'm taking everything all in. And
Right.
I wanted to ask, who are you inspired by?
Uh, there are many. There is not a single who. There are many who's who have inspired me or still inspiring me.
Yeah.
There are if I would mention people, there are many, but the driving ones are people who have shown me the different facets of life,
Mm.
or the people who have been the closest to me,
Okay.
because that's from whom I've been able to see the world, how it functions, to know about the dynamics of human relationships in all its colors. So the inspiration has really come from the first people I've seen, my parents
No.
and people who have been around.
Oh, okay.
And as you travel life, you discover about yourself and where your place is in that world.
Mm,
And
mm,
sometimes people in your immediate surrounding do not give you that answer. They don't give you that answer in a direct sense. Because they're providing a different sort of setup for you to thrive in. But
okay.
then you have questions about where you are, why you are here,
Yeah.
why are you a
Yeah.
human being? Who is a human being? Why were you born here? Where are you going afterwards? What happens when you die? Uh, you see all these things. So
Yeah.
these brought people who are much mature and realized in those spaces. Uh, on my path. So those would be my spiritual preceptors that have really given me that kind of the direction and the way to understand we'll say sorry, I'm using big and complicated words and getting lost. So given me a philosophical sense to my world,
Yeah.
to my existence in the world. So these would be my spiritual preceptors. And then as life goes along, you have people still in my surrounding that are constantly inspiring me every day to learn more about human subtleties, to learn more about human existence.
Yeah.
People I meet and talk. For example, this conversation is really inspiring because it's encouraging the exchange of ideas and thoughts between
Mm,
people who are at the moment in different geographical contexts with different cultural setups,
yeah.
but exchanging on the nature of human existence, of human experience, of
That's
parkour.
true.
All these things also are inspirations. So it as we go along, inspirations come from different things, different people, and different situations.
Mm. How do you define success? This is the question which I ask all my guests. So, yeah, how do you
Success to
define
me
success?
is being able to fulfill whatever matters to you the most.
Mm,
So that would be could be translated into several axes. Like
yeah,
I said, we need money to be able to live. So
yeah.
success in financial terms would be able to provide money and have a good life. So that would be one axe of success. But it's only one just one axe of success. The other things that determine success is what drives me from within. What do I like
Mm,
really? Like
mm,
what gets
mm,
like
mm,
what gets
mm,
all hyped about and the passion from where the passion comes. So if
mm.
you're able to fulfill those things, then you're really successful.
And then failure, does the word exist in your world?
Failure is something that failure or learning opportunities. So learning is about failure actually.
Oh.
If you see that. So success is a destination, we'll say,
Mm,
and as you learn to reach, you'll have small successes that are going to reach you to the ultimate success.
mm,
However, you're going to find it for yourself,
mm,
and then failures are bound to happen on the way. But there is no absolute failure because we are all here to
mm,
experience things. So there is no absolute failure. There are failures that's bound to happen because we are learning, and
mm,
learning implies succeeding at something or failing at something.
mm,
So along the way we are bound to have many successes and many failures,
mm.
but there is no absolute
Failure.
failure. No one is a failure. Nothing can be a failure. It's just knowing that failing at something is just an opportunity to learn more about that thing and bounce back uh, grown and with much more knowledge about that thing.
Okay. What's next for Devaraj? And what are some of the current projects that you're working on?
Currently, I'm working as a mental health counselor, so I'm involved with counseling people in different mental health contexts.
Yeah.
So I'm involved in the school context, so trying to work with children who have special needs in terms of education.
Okay.
I'm also I'm going to be involved in the near future with people into prisons, so people who are in prison. So we are trying to work on mental health projects for them.
Mm.
And I'm also currently pursuing my studies in mental health, which will hopefully lead to research prospects in the near future,
Okay.
so as to be able to study and understand the different mental health axes governing the Mauritian sphere.
Mm.
So not much has been done on that. There are many studies on Mauritius, but certain sectors in Mauritius are still unresearched. So probably trying to get into those fields. And of course, progress along the line, being able to better help human beings, to better understand what's going to be needed for me to flourish in my work as a counselor, as a mental health professional. And I'm very keen in talking to people. So I having access to certain platforms to be able to share ideas
Yes.
and to disseminate knowledge is one of the things that drives me as well. So there are many axes.
Mm. Do you have
And
any?
to summarize it, at the moment, it's working actively into the mental health sector,
Yeah.
promoting mental health, promoting wellness above all. So even if I'm promoting mental health, it's about mental well-being as
Mm.
a philosophical sense. So that's where I'm involved at the moment.
Do you have any books, recommendations, books that have maybe helped you along the way that you would like to recommend for people to check them out?
There are many books I've read. I've not read many books about, the self-help kind of books.
Oh, okay.
I'm These are very good. A lot of people will like them, but for me,
Yeah.
I like more of the philosophical thing that drives people to do things. So for
Oh,
me,
okay.
philosophy is a backdrop of everything. So it's all going to boil down to there.
No.
So in that sense, I enjoy a lot of spiritual books. I don't know if I will mention any one. Autobiography of a yogi is a must read for anyone.
Okay.
So basically, it's the experience of a realized master and how everything went about for him.
Okay.
So that's a really, really inspiring book, Autobiography of a Yogi. So since yoga is trending now, it's good to have that perspective about yoga. So it's a good read for everyone.
Yeah.
Then you have, from the philosophy context, you have a book called Sophie's World.
Sophie's
Sophie's World,
Sophie's
Sophie's
World.
World. Yeah, by Jocelyn
Sophie's
Gordon.
as in like the word Sophie.
Yeah, the name Sophie. That's it.
Okay, okay.
Why I'm mentioning this book? Because it has been determinant for me to understand Western philosophy and Western philosophical concepts. So it's
Mm.
basically a small girl who starts receiving letters out of nowhere talking about the various things in life.
Oh, I'll
Like why
check
is
it
why
out.
that thing is happening. And in the end, all those letters were about explaining to Sophie the different philosophical approaches to understand life and the universe and the world.
Oh, wow,
So
the book sounds so interesting. I'm definitely
yeah,
gonna check it out.
you should read that. That's really nice. And that book kind of gives you, it points out above all about how humans have managed over the millennia to try and understand their world and given varied explanations to that.
Mm.
And philosophy has given rise to science in the end. So
Mm.
it's that book really gave me a sense of belonging to the world and belonging to the world of knowledge and the world of trying to understand and make sense of the the world around us.
Any any last words that you want to leave us with?
My last words would be getting back to what you mentioned about if people are feeling unwell or low, I would I would strongly recommend to not despair. Sometimes despair can be above oneself. I understand that also, but help is always available. So there is always someone to whom you can go, and that someone ideally is a professional, because a professional knows how to help you, knows how to help you make sense of your situation, and knows how to guide you further towards positive, healthy outcomes. So my words would be, never despair in any situation. Always think that there are people around. You are not alone also, because your state, feeling whatever you're feeling with the 7 billion people in the world, it's impossible for you to be the only one feeling that. So it's perfectly genuine. It's perfectly all right to feel feeling, but you need to get out of it. So go towards professionals, take that step to be aware of your condition, so that you'll be able to be more healthy and better.
So that's so profound. Why can people get hold of you on social media?
On social media, I have my personal page on Facebook. I have my professional page on Facebook as well. It's called Deva Psych. Maybe I'll link you the names so you could put that.
Please.
People just want to get it.
Yeah.
So it's called Deva Psych, and I'm on Instagram. I'll be probably on YouTube soon. I've not really done videos on YouTube, but I was planning to do that, because talking is a different kind of connect.
Yes.
Like the example is today, like what we're doing today. So probably I'll be on YouTube. I'm on YouTube already for my music and
yes, and you have a lot of subscribers who are going through your YouTube channel. Wow, well done.
Thank you. But I've not really engaged through YouTube regarding mental health. So that's going to come probably very soon. So I'll let you know about that.
Okay.
And then on Instagram and on Twitter as well, it's my name. It's Devaraj.
Okay. This is the question which I ask. I've asked you a lot of questions which I ask all my guests. But this is the last one. When it is all said and done, Devaraj, how would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? If ever I'm remembered, I would like it to be through what I've contributed to the world around. So whatever impact I've left, if I've managed to create an impact in a positive way, of course, on people in my surrounding, first and foremost, in my community, in my country, and in the world, that would be something through which I would like to be remembered.
Wow. Thank you so much for your time. And I would like us to continue having this conversation. I would like to host you again soon. So I really, really enjoyed talking to you, and I've learned a lot about psychology. And yes, I really, really enjoy having this conversation with you.
Thanks a lot, Freedom. It was a real pleasure and honor being part of this conversation. And indeed, I hope we can talk soon.
Okay.